From the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, it's just the Tip-Sters with Melissa Morgan.
Lit like a match.
Today with a special Murdertizer, an appetizer of murder with an update on the formerly cold case of Carla Jan Walker. Remember, if you've got a tip for Melissa, tell us about it by calling the Tipster hotline at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837, or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. You just might hear your tip on the podcast. And now here's your host, stirring up the dregs of society and spooning out a delicious serving of You're Under Arrest, Asshole, Melissa Morgan.
More cowbell. Yeah. 46 years, 5 months, and 3 days. Wow. In the words of Jim Walker. And yep, you're under arrest, asshole.
Yep.
Glenn Samuel McCurley. Who knew? Nobody really knew, except that his name was in the file. In case you don't know what we're talking about, this is an update to episode 130. We covered Carla Jan Walker's case, which was a 46-year-old cold case, because of our wonderful friend of the podcast, Tipster Tammy. And she had sent me the case because she is a Fort Worth native. She had gone to the same high school years after Carla Walker had been abducted, and she said it colored the way everyone in Fort Worth behaved. You began locking your doors, you had to report into your parents. You know, this is the 70s and the 80s, I guess, when Tammy was going to school, and it inspired her to major in criminal justice. That's, as producer Mark says, the ripple effect. When a perpetrator takes someone's life, the ripple effect is huge. And in this case, a lot of terrible negative ripples, but a positive one, because Tipster Tammy, you know, and many, many other people have not forgotten Carla's case. There's a Facebook page, Justice for Carla Walker. There's some people fighting on it now, which I hate to see, but they're fighting because they are passionate about the case and, you know, couldn't be more delighted that this, you know, case, there's been an arrest. I don't want to say the case is solved, but there's been an arrest, and it sure does look really good.
It's in the solved ballpark.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it.
Kind of on the pitcher's mound of the ballpark.
Jim Walker, Carla's younger brother, is an all-star pitcher. And as he says, after 46 years, 5 months, and 3 days, we have a name, we have a face, and we're working toward complete resolution. And that's the truth, Jim Walker. And Jim Walker, her brother, is as much of a hero in this case as the detectives. There have been many detectives over the years, as you can imagine, in a 46-year-old cold case. The two detectives that were charged with looking at this cold case, Detective Jay Bennett and Detective Leah Wagner, they've done an amazing job. Before I explain what they've done, I'm going to go back and just give you a small synopsis of the case. Again, we covered this in episode 130. Carla Walker was at the Valentine's Day dance with her very steady boyfriend, Rodney McCoy. She's 17, Rodney's 19, a little bit older. And yes, it's February 16th, which is after Valentine's Day, but it was the Saturday closest to Valentine's Day, so her high school had this dance. She wore her sister's dress, her older sister's dress, the Walker family, a beautiful, tight family of, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Walker and 4 great kids. And she wore her older sister's dress, a beautiful blue dress with some white lace on it. It had to be made a little shorter because Carla was very tiny, like 5 foot tall, 110 pounds or something. She was a cheerleader, and Rodney was completely besotted with her, and he is the only living witness. It's a rare case that has a living witness when someone is found murdered and raped, and in some instances said she was tortured, which we'll discuss that too. But Rodney said he knew things were going well in their relationship when her parents said that the door was always open and that there was a place set at the table for him any evening he wanted to come over for dinner. And he was absolutely making plans for a future with Carla, and it changed the trajectory of his life. There are some things that he said in his statement about what happened that people have dissected to the point of obliteration, and also some things that he said Carla said that people maybe didn't understand or that broke their heart when they heard it, including when she said, "Go get daddy," which I know that really cuts to the core of a lot of people. So let's go back. February 16th, 1974, they're at their Valentine's Day dance. They have dinner before the dance. They're with another couple. After the dance, they stop at the Ridgely Bowl, which is important. It was a big bowling alley in the area, very popular hangout, but also because they would let you use their bathroom. And Carla had to go to the bathroom. So they stop at the Ridgely Bowl. They're parked behind the bowling alley. They're in Rodney's car, which he had borrowed from his mother, a big LTD, which producer Mark had an LTD, which it was called the LTD of love.
That's a different story.
But it could be used for love because it's a large car.
It certainly could.
So Rodney and Carla are in the front seat and expressing their love for each other intimately. And the passenger side door is open. According to Rodney, Carla almost falls out. A man who he describes in his 20s, average height, 5'10", average build, 160 to 180, wearing a cowboy hat and a shiny green vest, says, "I'm going to kill you," attempts to shoot Rodney. The gun jams. He then hits him with the butt of the gun. And before he loses consciousness, he hears Carla say the last words he hears from her, which are, "Go get daddy, go get daddy." Now that has been dissected. That even producer Mark said, he thought what that meant was that she thought maybe Rodney knew the people.
Yeah, that there was somebody that they knew. That's what I thought when I first heard that.
Like that we can take care of this ourselves. But I have a different perspective. Being a girl from Kentucky, my father was not present in my life. My mom divorced my father when I was an infant, but my grandfather was, and my mother's father. And he was like a second father. He was always, in all the pictures of my childhood, he's behind me. He's the one holding my bike by the back banana seat when he had taken off the training wheels. There's a picture of him building me a sandbox out of some old wood he had. I mean, he let my mother be my parent, but he was a wonderful male influence in my life. And if something were to have happened to me and I needed help, I would have immediately thought, go get grandpa. In times of trouble when you're young, and Carla was 17, you're on the verge of being a woman, but you're still a little girl. And when bad things happen, go get daddy seems like the perfect thing to say. And I would have said, go get grandpa. It's a phrase that we've heard in the news several times over the last few years as more, we have the 24-hour news cycle, and as cases become much more public and publicized, grown men on the verge of losing their life say, mama or mommy.
Yeah, that's true.
I've heard it more than once recently, and maybe it reverts back to, our brain reverts back to being a child. So the fact that she said, go get daddy, didn't necessarily mean to me, I know the perpetrator or I recognize him, and maybe Rodney knows him. But it certainly left a lot of people, wondering and having their own theories. And when Rodney drives wildly with blood on his face after he regains consciousness to the Walker home, he pulls up into the front yard. He's so agitated and in such a state. He drives his car up into the front yard, and he exits the car, runs up to the front door screaming, "They got her, they got her." That is the other sentence that everyone has dissected. And the part that really bothers me is that there's, some heated discussions on the official Justice for Carla Walker Facebook page where people are like, now we need to, sweat out the suspect so that he'll tell us who the accomplices were. There were no accomplices. Glenn Samuel McCurley was an individual who did a terrible thing. And 46 years, 5 months, and 3 days later, we know it's him. And no matter what was done in this case, and there have been some fantastic detectives who have had this case over the decades, they've never let it go. The thing that got them is DNA. The thing that they used, the tool that they employed really worked. And God bless the detectives that preserved everything, probably before Detective Bennett and Detective Wagner were born, saved things 46 years ago.
DNA lasting that long, you have to be very careful to preserve that.
I think they did a phenomenal job, and I hate to say this, I think he left his DNA just all over the place, all over her clothes. Her dress, her bra, which was pushed up, her underwear and her pantyhose were never found. I don't know if he took, a trophy or a token. I don't want to know. I don't want to know what a 77-year-old man has in his prize closet. I don't want to know. He never left the area. He was married at the time that he abducted, raped, and killed Carla. He was 30, 31. Married, has kids, grandkids, churchgoer. How do you walk into a church every week and not, that God doesn't just lightning bolt your fucking ass down to hell? That's one of those things I'm not ever going to get. I mean, I guess I can say 2 words, Dennis Rader, who was like the president of the church council at his church.
This is not uncommon among
No, I guess not. But it's certainly bothersome in my mind, hiding, under your minister's robes or something. I guess I can't even talk about this right now. I can't talk about that part. But what I can talk about is the fact that people are saying, well, he was not on my radar. Well, he was not on any of our radars because he was in the case file. He had been questioned. He was under law enforcement's radar, but, kind of on a back burner because in 1974, you start close and you work out from there. So after Rodney's statement, family members, friends, schoolmates, you now work out to the community. So somebody within a specific mileage of where it happened, somebody who owns a .22 Ruger, this Glenn Samuel McCurley was questioned. Her body was found 3 days later in a culvert near Benbrook Lake. It took 3 days to find her. And he was questioned because he lived in the area and owned a .22 Ruger. He was at work, he said, until 4:30 p.m. on the 16th. And then, ironically, his wife was out of town. And he was off work the following day. So I don't know if he just took this time to do this terrible thing. I don't know that he will ever tell us if there are other victims. Things didn't go well for him. He tried to shoot Rodney. He said, "I'm going to kill you." The gun jammed. And then he took the butt of the gun and beat Rodney in the head until he was unconscious. And during the beating of him, the magazine fell out in the parking lot of the Ridgely Bowl. So they had a magazine from a .22 Ruger. He said that, I guess he had taken it, don't ask me why, when he said he had gone fishing the following day. And he said his gun was stolen, like off the banks of, I don't know if it was Benbrook Lake or someplace else, but maybe he thought he was going to shoot fish. I don't know.
Oh, God.
But so his gun's missing. He said he didn't know a Carla Walker. And that part's true. This was one of those terrible, terrible random things. He saw a beautiful girl in a car in a vulnerable position and just snatched her for his own awful ideas and desires. It doesn't matter that she's a living, breathing human being with a family who loves her, with a partner who loves her, with a life ahead of her. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to him. He just takes what he wants. So what I think happened that was really, really well done is that I believe, and it's just a theory, that last year in 2019, in the spring of 2019, in April, the detectives released a letter that they'd had in the file the entire time. And I believe that they thought the letter was useless, and it turns out it was. But I think they used that as a piece of quote-unquote evidence that they wanted to use to get interest in the case again. You know, they had profiled the case on the news in 2017, but it kind of lagged again. And here, you know, last year it's 45 years after, and they bring up this letter. Look at this letter. It's from a pad of printed paper that could have been from a doctor's office or a veterinarian's office or an office. And it's handwritten, and it looks like a male's writing, and it says, redacted name, killed, misspelled, K-I-L-D, Carla Walker, Benbrook Lake, sign 10100, and then at the bottom again, 10100. I actually took a picture of that letter and posted it on social media back when we covered Carla's case in episode 130. You can find it anywhere. It's very easy to find. So there was, of course, a lot of theories on what it meant. The person's name. Some people said, oh, it was a doctor. Someone also wrote, it's sad to say, but it's true. There were some misspellings. You know, people have over the years thought, oh, the misspellings were intentional. I don't think so. I think someone thought they were doing the right thing. It turns out the name that they have, that they mentioned, isn't the perpetrator, wasn't the perpetrator. And then, of course, the 10100 could mean a lot of things. If you are a truck driver, 10100 means you're stopping to go to the bathroom. Every jurisdiction has their own symbology. And according to the Fort Worth Police Department, 10100 meant show up, there is a dead body. So they would put that out when someone, you know, when they needed those in charge to show up. So it could have been that. It was mentioned twice in a very short handwritten letter. So who knows what the original writer meant. They could have been in law enforcement, or maybe they were familiar with law enforcement lingo, or it could have just meant nothing. But
I think it could. So they think maybe it was just a citizen or somebody who thought they knew who killed Carla and was trying to help the police.
Absolutely. I do believe that, you know, that I think they probably knew that. My theory is it was used as a tool, and it got people talking. And speaking of tools, I am, you know, so impressed with these detectives who found this lab in the Woodlands part of Houston, Othram. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Othram. And the owner and founder of Othram, Dave Middleman, says, you know, they've been in business like 2 years and they deal exclusively with law enforcement. And he said, you know, we take the cases that nobody wants, the old ones where, you know, there's maybe not a lot of information or it's degraded. You know, they take these cases, and he said, you know, it's a big burden when you feel like you really want to help people, especially those who've been working on a case for decades. But when it happens and it works, it feels amazing. And he's, you know, he's right. So they had gotten a really great definitive full profile off of her clothing. Finally, it just isn't going to show up in CODIS because Glenn Samuel McCurley only had some DUIs, or DWIs, I believe they're called in Texas. So they went the route of Paul Holes and our beloved Barbara Ray Venter and went to GEDmatch. And they narrowed it down to three brothers, last name McCurley. And Leah Wagner, Detective Leah Wagner, is like, I recognize that name from the file. And they go back and they find where they had, you know, 4 decades ago, talked to Glenn Samuel McCurley, who said he didn't know a Carla Walker. His gun had been stolen, and that's that. And he had been put on the back burner. They wait and get a sample of his DNA from his trash in July. They compare the two, and it is last Wednesday, they get back the information that is a 100% DNA match. They arrest him on Tuesday the 22nd, I guess, and he at first denies it. He's taken down to the station. They show him the DNA results, and he has a change of heart, and he admits it. The thing that really, I think, is weighing on everyone's head right now, are there other victims?
That's right. I mean, well, he was a truck driver, right?
Yes.
So he could have done this all over the country or wherever he drove. I mean, it's scary to think of what he might have done.
Yes. The only solace I can take is that he's finally caught. It's a terrible thing that he's a 77-year-old man with a family. I'm sure his family's devastated. They are also victims, but,
Yeah, well,
I know.
Carla's family and poor Rodney, I mean, they've been victims for 46 years.
Rodney McCoy, I feel like, this has got to make him feel somewhat better. And I hope, I don't know if it brings him any peace 4 decades later, a black cloud over his entire life. I know he's moved on, he's married, but I mean, he's, literally considered a senior citizen now. It's been 46 years. I mean, his entire adult life is, he has been a suspect off and on and questioned off and on.
And you know how it goes. The people that knew him, the circle of maybe not the closest people to him, but in a town in Texas where you're accused of this, I'm sure there are a ton of people who just suspected it was him, and they've always suspected it was him.
Well, I understand what you're saying, Producer Mark, but I will tell you that about 3 weeks after Tipster Tammy had sent me the email saying, would you please cover this case? And I was like, oh, do I have to? And then I look at it and I'm like, oh, this is really heartbreaking. And she sent me a follow-up email before I had a chance to even record the episode and said, I just want you to know nobody thinks Rodney could have done this. However, he hung around some, people that were older and that were not great people, that were shady as fuck.
Oh, that's right. I remember that now.
Yeah. So I don't, whether it's the people that were closest to him or, not everyone is going to believe he didn't do it until something like this happens. But I hope the people that know him, got to know him, could see that this affected his life, the rest of his life. I mean, they were making plans to be together, right? I mean, they were a couple, and it wasn't just, this is my high school boyfriend. They were together for a while, and it was, they were both very much in love. That's everything I have read. And you can see when he's interviewed, you can see the pain in his eyes when he talks about it. He doesn't talk about it often. The times he has talked about it, you can see the pain in his eyes.
Well, and there's the family too. Her family.
Well, her brother, Jim Walker, is just as much of a hero in my mind as the detectives who cracked this case. He has never given up. I don't know many 12-year-old boys who worship their 17-year-old sisters, who go to the lengths that Jim Walker has. He went and sat overnight in the culvert where she was found, hoping he would understand if she was cold, if what she went through. He joined the police force. If there's anything good that came out of this, it's the people that this case inspired, including Tipster Tammy, who, majored in criminal justice. Jim Walker, who wanted to be in law enforcement because of his, to solve his sister's case, and notices that his eyesight's failing. He doesn't want to be a burden, so he leaves the force. He is now legally blind. And a few years ago, the man who never stopped wanting to solve his sister's case, he's out for a walk with his wife and his seeing eye dog, his service animal. And they come across 2 police officers who are trying to take down a perp. And they're struggling. And legally blind Jim Walker jumps on the perp's back and takes him down. And the police officers say, we don't know where he came from. It was like he dropped out of the sky. We didn't know he was there until he was on top of the perp's back. And we could not have detained this person without his help. And the news crews show up to his home and, to interview the local hero. And what does he do? He holds up a picture of Carla and says, this is my sister. Her case is unsolved. We're not going anywhere. That's the kind of hero. That's the kind of hero he is. So the best thing I can say, because they are so much more giving than I am, the best thing I can say about this event is the words of Jim Walker, who says, we are praying for his family. We absolutely offer forgiveness, but that does not come with a get out of jail free card. And more cowbell.
If you'd like to support this podcast, go to patreon.com/justthetipsters.